everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Rennie Vandeweghe, General Manager of Weather and Climate Intelligence at DTN. Rennie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Brittany. It's great to be with you.
It's great to have you and your expertise here because we are seeing just horrifying and devastating images coming out of Southern California today and over the past few days as three wildfires continue to rage around the Los Angeles County area. So I think to start off the conversation, can you tell us how exactly did this happen?
Yeah, there's a really strong storm system moving in from off the Pacific Ocean, and that's creating really strong winds, which we call the Santa Ana winds. And those winds are raging between 40 and even 80 miles per hour. So any spark that gets created across the dry landscape has the potential to turn into a really large fire really fast. And with those strong winds, create a rapid spread. And that's occurred, unfortunately. We're seeing multiple fires spreading rather quickly. And they're still concerned today that any new fires that develop will spread rapidly. So ultimately, it's a really strong storm system creating winds, and that's leading to impactful fires.
Can you talk a little bit more about the Santa Ana winds and just how exactly they're playing a factor here? Because I read somewhere, I think they're called the devil's winds or something to that effect. So it sounds like it's a pretty dangerous moment there.
It is. What will occur is there are northeasterly winds that come from atop the mountain and rush down the mountain. When that occurs, those winds become drier by nature. And so the winds aren't only strong, but they're also really dry. So they tend to contribute to most of the fires that occur in California. And between the mountains and then the small valleys, that can enhance the wind speeds even more. It's kind of like taking water through a hose. If you close up the hose tighter, the water sprays faster. That similar effect occurs with wind. So when the wind moves through those valleys, it creates an enhancing effect. And so there's a localized area in Southern California with these winds that can create really hazardous conditions.
Governor Gavin Newsom of California declared a state of emergency, and he also said this about the weather conditions, quote, "This is a highly dangerous windstorm creating extreme fire risk, and we're not out of the woods." So aside from the winds, what other weather conditions are making this moment so dangerous?
Well, it typically starts with very dry conditions. So we look for the fuels that are on the ground. When we say fuels in wildfire, we're talking about dry leaves, dry grass, could be branches that are on the ground that have dried out over a period of time. And so when you have that fuel supply, that helps to create the fire to start. You add that with the conditions of really low relative humidity and the addition of this wind, that is sort of the recipe for wildfire. We've been tracking this for several days leading up to this as a high wildfire potential. And once those get started, it's very hard to contain them quickly. And so the hope is to not have fires start with to begin, but once they get going, then the fire crews are ready to respond as fast as possible.
Before you and I started talking, I looked online and the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection said that 0% of these three wildfires are contained. You hear that as a weather expert. What are you thinking? Because you did say it was hard to contain these, but 0%, I mean, that is just horrific.
It is, and we know that the firefighters are fighting so hard to get these under control. They're using every technique they have. At times, they're even bulldozing down some of the materials ahead of the fires to stop the spread. The other concern that we have in containing is that the sparks and the ashes and some of the fire can actually hop because the wind will carry the embers further downstream and start new spot fires in direction. So while the crews are working to contain the fire at its starting point and where it's kind of at its peak, there's concern for fires spreading even more rapidly, and that's what makes it so hard to contain.
And you hear that, and then there's also news, there's reports that some firefighters are saying that the hydrants are dry, there's no water. So you hear that paired with 0% containment, you're saying that it's really hard to contain these fires. What are you thinking?
Well, what I'm thinking is that the crews are, and what they've done a great job of so far is bringing in extra help. And so it's all hands on deck. And we should give a lot of admiration to these firefighters. They're working extremely long hours in tough conditions. So what I see is that, number one, the good news is that the storm system will continue to progress to the east. It's hard in the moment today, given the extreme winds, but those winds will start to relax over the next day or two. And I expect containment opportunities to be a lot stronger very soon. But give them a lot of credit for using the airplanes with the scoops and picking up water from area lakes to dump on these fires. But it's certainly concerning. The main thing we say is for those that live locally, you have to pay attention to the evacuation orders and react very quickly if you're in danger.
You see all these images, all these videos, all of those firefighters are so heroic. But aside from heeding evacuation orders, what is your advice to people in the Los Angeles County area right now?
You got to pay attention constantly because the environment can change really rapidly. While most of the fires have been contained to the extreme northwestern side of the Los Angeles metro, we know that really all of the metro area is under this high fire danger. And we're certainly watching in areas such as Burbank and Pasadena down towards downtown LA for new fires starting. So, one of the key things, of course, is watch your own environment, make sure that you're not contributing to the potential for fire. So if that's cigarette smoking, making sure that they're put out with water, not partaking in any activities that could potentially create sparks or create hazards. It's really a good time to stay inside if you're not near the fires at this point in time, just so that you're not, potentially a reason that a new one could start. So that's the main thing. And then if new fires are starting, paying attention to all of the warning information and ensuring if you're in an evacuation zone that you react very quickly. I would personally have a go kit ready to go just in case you get one of those evacuation orders that you can pick up and leave quickly.
This is affecting thousands of acres, hundreds of thousands of people. But what you said in the next day or two, there's a system coming in that could ease this up a little bit. So, from your weather expertise here, what are you looking out for next?
Yeah, so we're watching the upper level system that is kind of the maker of the strong winds and this setup for wildfire is progressing to the east. It's going to create new hazards as it goes further east, including snowfall from Dallas through Little Rock in areas in the southern US. So it's that same storm system creating the really strong winds in California is just going to continue to move eastward. And so we expect that the winds will start to calm down across California, and that'll give the firefighters a better chance to get more containment and ultimately stop these fires.
And as the expert here, is this time of year, is this size, is anything surprising you when you see all of these images coming out of California right now?
Well, it's always heartbreaking. And that's, it's always hard to watch these events unfold because you know how much trauma and heartache they're creating. The other thing is, I think the combination of how strong these winds are combined with the dry gives it a quite unprecedented level of fire danger. And so a lot of the warnings ahead of time focused on that this is a high end threat level. We've seen threat levels this high before, but they don't happen that often. And so that combination of very dry conditions leading up to this, plus the winds have created this very strong threat for wildfire.
And do you see the rest of the season playing out just as dangerous, just as perhaps unprecedented as this event right now?
Well, there could certainly be more. It's dependent on having more storm systems continue to move in off the Pacific over California and really all up and down the west coast of the United States. It's hard to say that we'll have this level of fire danger with any preceding storm. What would be great is to get some strong storm systems with moisture that could bring snow to the mountains and rain elsewhere. That would certainly help to deter future fires coming up.
Based on upcoming forecasts, are you seeing any moisture? Are you seeing any rain relief, any snow, anything like that?
Yeah, we're starting to get a viewpoint into the next 7 to 10 days in the future of getting some storm systems in. The good news is we're not seeing these extreme Santa Ana winds showing up in the forecast. I think that's good, but it bears watching as you get closer into the forecast to pay attention to these. But for the most part, we do expect to see a couple of events come in that could bring more moisture to the area rather than wildfire danger.
Randy, I really appreciate your expertise here during this really heartbreaking time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you can join me again soon.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.